So this is the Start Arrow I recently purchased. Really good solid box, nice magnetic clasp on there. Interesting book to go along with it. As you can see, the book itself is quite shiny, but at least it does have full colour pictures inside. Not that that's always necessary, but I think if you're going through this particular book, it's useful to have that colour in there. You will understand why I say that in a moment when we go through the cards themselves. The cards were actually sort of wrapped around with just a bit sort of thin cellophane around the middle. And as you can see, there's no ribbon to pull them out, so half the cards get left behind. Now, this is why I feel it's useful to have the full colour pictures within the book, because they're quite funky, these cards. And there is another, I'll say, issue with them. They're really, really good quality cardstock. I mean, super thick, and at least they're matte. So though that book was very shiny and my window was reflecting on it, at least with these they're not. However, I had to remove the thin cellophane that was going around the middle holding them together before I could actually do the review, because when I did take them off and started recording, I realised that all the cards were stuck together, and I had to go through the deck 3 times to actually separate them all. They weren't stuck with glue, it hasn't damaged them in any way whatsoever, but because the cards are so thick, as you go through it, if you try to shuffle them straight away, you're going to have a problem. So I would say if you do get this deck, just go through them one by one and ensure that they're separated. But the colours, oh my goodness, they are super. Look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. These are really bright, and I don't have any specific light shining on them or anything. Just normal light from my window. So you can see how clear and concise they are. However, like I said, some of the symbolism isn't quite traditional. It doesn't matter if you're reading them intuitively anyway, and neither if you're reading them actually traditionally, but use that intuition with these cards because they're just so wonderful and so much fun. They're quite simple in the actual sort of artwork themselves, but nevertheless you do draw a lot of information from them. Sometimes less is more when it comes to tarot cards. And as we're going through them, you can see that there's no borders on them. I quite like borders. In these, I'm quite happy without having them. Look at that one, that's gorgeous. Some of the colours really jump out at you and it makes you want to linger over them. Like I said, they are superb quality. They were easy to hold. They're relatively easy to shuffle. Only say relatively because they are so thick. It can take a little bit of a while to get used to them, but nevertheless, they are superb. I can't really fault them except for that irritating bit at the beginning where I had to go through them to separate it. But then in saying that, whenever I teach, I always recommend with a new deck, you go through them individually just to ensure they're separated. So there we are, really lovely deck. Thanks for watching.